Hello and welcome to Endurance Minded. It's the podcast that aims to redefine what it means to reach our full potential by exploring how movement and mindset impacts our lives and how we can all work to show up as the best versions of ourselves. I'm your host, Taylor Thomas, founder at TEC. And before we kick this episode off, I have an all call for people in the health and wellness space that are ready to start their business or take their existing business to the next level. If you're a coach, a personal trainer, a dietitian, nutritionist, or anyone who has a passion for helping others reach their full potential, this is for you. The Growth Circle, TEC's business accelerator, focuses on three main areas to help you grow and scale a business. The first is revenue. TEC helps business owners accomplish their revenue goals in less time to build a sustainable, profitable, and scalable business. Next, we focus on client acquisition and retention. We provide you with the confidence, resources, and skills to attract and retain your ideal client. And last, and most importantly, we focus on community and collaboration. Building a profitable coaching business shouldn't be lonely. Build with a team of driven entrepreneurs just like you that will support and inspire you. If you're hungry to be a part of a community that delivers inspiration and mentorship, as well as flattens the learning curve to building your business, I want to invite you to apply today for the Growth Circle, TEC's business accelerator, and let us help you build a wildly profitable coaching business.
Hello. Welcome back to Endurance Minded. Super excited for today's episode. It is something that I think a lot about, and I'm hopeful that at the end of our episode today, you'll have a different perspective on what it looks like for you to be extraordinary. The reason that I like this topic, the reason that I think about it a lot for myself as well as for others, is I recognize that we put a tremendous amount of pressure on ourselves to fit in. And we think a lot about whether or not we are or aren't doing things, quote unquote, the right way, or doing things in alignment with other people's expectations of us, or how we should do things, or our process, or our approach. And while I certainly understand that that is the human condition, and I don't know that we can totally get to a place where we're able to avoid or sidestep that, what I do recognize and I want to impart on you today is that I think that there is a massive opportunity to exchange how we think about fitting in, and recognize that if we are an individual, if you are listening and you are someone who is trying to do things differently, if you're trying to reach your full potential, if you are trying to be extraordinary in whatever way you want to define that, in whatever way that makes sense for you and your world, then by definition, you can't fit in. By definition, you can't do the same things that other people do. And so I think for me, as soon as we let go of that, as soon as we relinquish some of that pressure that is so often self-imposed, I think it provides, one, a tremendous amount of freedom to think and act and do things in a way that we want to do them. And I think it also provides a very different perspective to think about and compartmentalize how we move through the world. And so to kick this off, I want to set the stage with just a frame of reference, which is if you want to achieve something extraordinary, again, in whatever way you define that in your life, that could be building an exceptional career, that could be finishing a physical feat or endeavor that is far outside of your comfort zone. Whatever that is, doesn't have to be anything particular. If you want to be an incredible partner, if you want to be an extraordinary friend, if you want to achieve something extraordinary, you have to be willing to do what most people want. Success, whether it's in business, fitness, life, requires being extraordinary. So not just good, not just disciplined, but consistently going beyond the norm. By definition, what everyone else is doing is yielding ordinary results, right? If we think about just that simple fact as an equation, then what other folks are doing, the norm is yielding ordinary results. And so if we want to do something that is outside of the ordinary, then we have to think about things differently. We have to do and take different actions. We have to be someone different. We have to do different things. And that's going to yield extraordinary results. It's going to allow us to move through the world in a different way. It's going to allow us to think differently, to behave differently, to act differently, to take different actions that yield different results. So I want you to just understand that equation. And that's truly how I think about it. It's normal input equals ordinary output. Extraordinary input is going to yield extraordinary output. So why does this matter? Well, it matters because most people settle for what's comfortable. Now, I'm not here to say that everyone has to reach for the stars, but I am an advocate that everyone works to maximize their full potential in whatever capacity and way that looks and feels like for them in their lives. I think that people, all of us, are capable of extraordinary things. And I think that the real fact of the matter is that most people fall extraordinarily short of their full potential due to any number of reasons and circumstances and scenarios. However, I do know that we can also control certain aspects of that. Certainly certain aspects are far outside of our control. But the things that we can control are what we're going to talk about today, which is your mindset, which is thinking about what extraordinary input looks like so that it yields extraordinary output. So extraordinary results require extraordinary actions, extraordinary decisions, an extraordinary mindset and mindset shifts. And that's really what I want to get into today. And so if you do what everyone else does, you're going to get what everyone else gets. Let's just state that and move from there. So what you're going to walk away with today is we're going to break down how this applies in a few key areas of your life. We're going to break down how this applies in your work, in your physical pursuits, and your life, your lifestyle, with actionable takeaways so that you can actually make some change. This is something that I'm hyper focused on this year. And I want to deliver this in a very, very tactical way for our audience so that you can walk away with clear through lines of what the hell it is that I'm talking about. Because I know that so much of what we hear about this topic and in and around this topic is a lot of people talking at us, but no real clear solutions on what it looks like to change our mindset. So I want this episode to be notably different. So let's dive in. Let's talk about what's the difference between ordinary and extraordinary, right? How do we define that? So the first thing that I want to point out, and this is key because I think from my experience, this is where I feel like this message gets off course when we have talking heads on the internet talking at us about what it looks and feels like to be extraordinary. Extraordinary doesn't mean perfect. So it doesn't mean that we have to knock it out of the park every day. It doesn't mean that we have all the answers, that we have everything figured out, that we know exactly what the path forward looks like, blah, 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 on and on and on, right? It doesn't mean perfect. What it does mean is that we're going beyond our default settings for our life. So we're actively pursuing things that are over and above our default setting. So our default setting might be that it would be very easy and comfortable to sit on the couch and not exercise, right? It would be very easy to come up with other excuses that why I shouldn't start this new business or this new thing or go to this place or pursue this opportunity. It would be really easy to continue to lean in to the excuse that I don't have enough time or that I'm too distracted or I have too much on my plate or now's not the right time or the right season. The list goes on and on and on. Those are our default settings, right? And so again, extraordinary doesn't mean perfect, but it does mean that we're actively looking for opportunities to go beyond our default settings in our life. The first step of that is we have to recognize what those default settings are. I just gave you a handful of default settings, right? And those show up every day, all the time. We have to recognize them. And then we have to understand that extraordinary starts with a desire to go beyond those default settings. So an example of that in business, and again, I'm going to highlight 3 different areas. We're going to talk about work, we're going to talk about fitness, and we're going to talk about your life. And those things are not in silos. So I want you to think about them as a combined way of life. I want you to think about them as a combined way of thinking, but I am going to break them apart because to be extraordinary in those areas does require different input and a different way of thinking about things. So in business, what that looks like is that an example of what extraordinary looks like is that most people check their email, they sit in meetings, and they stay in reaction mode, right? They wait for input, right? When's the opportunity going to come to me? Let me wait till the next fire. I'll put that out, rinse and repeat. Let me be reactionary. Extraordinary people in their career path, they prioritize a few different things. One, they prioritize deep work. So work that actually moves the needle, things that are proactive. So thoughts, strategy, planning, deep work, right? Things that help you build a knowledge base that allows you to create something different and do different things to actually move the needle, not just wait for input to come to you, put out the fire, rinse and repeat. Extraordinary people in their career path also set clear goals, right? It's not up to chance. You know exactly where you're going, right? You know exactly where you're going, and clear goals. Let me break that down even more specifically. That's going to be short-term goals. Short-term goals for me are 60 to 90 days. Near-term goals, which are 1 year, and then long-term goals, which are 5 to 10. And there's a clear common through line. You know exactly where you're going. What that allows you to do is to take clear and concise action in the direction of those goals. Now, again, perfection is not what we're aiming for. There's going to be disruption. There's going to be a million things and speed bumps that get in the way, but you can come back to those goals because you know what your North Star is. And then you're going to take uncomfortable action. So you're not going to wait for the right time. You're not going to wait for the perfect scenario. You're not going to wait for when you're comfortable, when you have the most time, when you're going to do it, right? There's a million excuses. If you wait for the right time, you're going to be waiting a long time. I've talked about that at length on this show over the years. And it's something that I'm more fired up now and believe more in now than ever before. More people than ever are waiting for the right time. Take clear and uncomfortable action in the direction of the things that you say that you want. That's how you become extraordinary, because that is extraordinary, right? That is an example of what that action looks like. What's it look like in your fitness? Ordinary people work out occasionally. They avoid discomfort, right? Yeah, I work out when I feel like it. I'll set goals that I know I can accomplish. I'll do things that I know are in my wheelhouse. What does that look like? Extraordinary individuals, athletes, you train with purpose, right? You have clear goals, just like in your professional life. You embrace discomfort. You know that on the other side of discomfort and friction is progress. You know that that's part of it, right? And you stay consistent. First and foremost, you don't work out occasionally when it's convenient, when it's comfortable, when you feel motivated. You don't wait around for the perfect scenario. You train with purpose, you embrace discomfort, and you stay consistent. So what does extraordinary look like in our lives? Ordinary people follow the crowd, right? We do whatever everybody else is doing, right? They make decisions in alignment with everybody else, whether that's for their lives, how they spend their time, financially, whatever. Extraordinary people, they question the norms. They set boundaries, right? They surround themselves with people that inspire them, that set them on a path towards their goal, that provide the resources and support and mentorship necessary to think about things differently, to create that ever important mindset shift. And they build a life that's aligned with their goals, right? So you're intentional. That's what I want you to take away from that. There's an intentionality to being extraordinary. It's easy to wake up and, click on the TV, sit on the couch, do the Costco run, come home, not exercise, whatever. And again, not every day is perfect. All those things have to be done, right? I'm not here to shit on people's normal everyday lives. But what I want you to do is I want you to think about what it looks like to be intentional, right? Don't let things happen to you. Don't look to normal people for extraordinary results. Set yourself up for success. So how do we apply this to work and business, right? So again, I want to break this into these three key places. I just gave you some examples of what being extraordinary actually looks like in those three areas of your life. Right? So again, we have your kind of everyday life, we have your work, your career, your business, then we have your physical. Those, of course, aren't the only areas, but I think those three get us started. So we've already defined that we know that most professionals, most people in their careers, spend their days reacting instead of leading. And I am a firm believer that you are a leader no matter what your position is. So I don't care if you're at the top of the company or you're at the proverbial bottom, you have the opportunity to be a leader because leaders impact their surroundings. Leaders have a positive impact on the people in their sphere. We all interact with people, which means we are all leaders. So you don't have to take this passively. You can be a leader. You can be extraordinary. So what does extraordinary look like in our work? So we're going to set priorities based on our long-term vision. That's going to mean we have to have a vision. You got to get clear on that. Your vision is your North Star. This is one of the biggest pieces for me because most people are just checking away daily task lists. You have a laundry list of things that you have to do. You go through and you try to check that off, and then we quantify that as success and productivity. Those things need to be done, but what we also need to do is we need to take extraordinary action in the direction of a long-term vision so that we can create different results and different outcomes. You're going to be stuck chasing a task list and a to-do list if you don't break free of that mindset, if you don't start to think intentionally about how you move through your days as it relates to your work. Then you need to say no to the things that don't align with your goals, even if everybody else is saying yes. Right? Again, don't go with the norm. If everybody is making decisions that don't align with your goals and don't align with your long-term vision, then that's the first clear sign that you need to be doing something different. Right now, you're going to get some looks. You're going to get some stares. Why are you doing this? Why are you making that decision? That seems hard. That doesn't make sense. Okay, good. It shouldn't. Right? Don't take advice or look for approval from people that are not getting the results that are in alignment with your goals. Right? And for me, that's been the biggest shift is if the people that are giving me feedback haven't accomplished or aren't en route to accomplishing the things that I want, they don't get a lot of input, right? They don't get to pour into how I think about things, right? Take advice from the people that are in alignment with your goals. Next, I think this is a big one, is also investing in personal development, coaching, mentorship. So other people choose to stay stagnant because those relationships, so personal development, coaching, mentorship, whatever form that takes, however you pursue it, what that does is it creates an inherent level of friction because it highlights our weaknesses and it highlights the areas that we need to grow in order to accomplish our goals. So what it does is it takes away the excuses that we give ourselves that keep us from moving forward. Right? When we don't pursue those things, we don't pursue mentorship, coaching, personal development, we are able to continue to convince ourselves that staying exactly where we're at is the best decision. When we invest in those relationships, when we put ourselves in those places with mentorship, coaching, personal development, what it does is it immediately highlights opportunities for growth. Well, that's really hard, right? Then we don't have an excuse not to take action. So we shy away from those things because it's easier to stay stuck and it's easier to stay frustrated than it is to actually take action in the direction of the things that we want. So when others are staying stagnant, when others are creating excuses, when others are actively leaning into their blind spots and staying stuck, we're going to pursue other opportunities, right? We're going to pursue that personal development, the coaching, the mentorship, relationships that help us see what's possible, help us see those blind spots, work on them, fix them as much as we can, and then move forward. Right? I think for me, this is if you do nothing else, I think that's the takeaway. So many people, there are so many opportunities to build relationships that help us see exactly what it looks like to move forward. But that's a confronting relationship, right? It's easier to stay stuck, to continue to stay in those bad habits, that mindset that keeps us stuck, than to invest in relationships that actually move us forward. So we keep coming up with excuses. And I want you to see, I think this is interesting. I've thought about this, that it actually, what I'm saying might come off as like, you have to work yourself to death. And when other people are taking time off or doing these other things, like, that can't be you. I think that gets pushed on us a lot. And by all means, like, I think that if you want to do something extraordinary, you're going to have to work hard. But what I also see happen is that, if everyone around you is working 12-hour days, and those days are really reactive, again, those days aren't yielding the results that you want. They're busy for the sake of being busy. I think there's also an opportunity to make some different decisions, right? Can you prioritize the things that you want to prioritize? Can you make sure that you're spending time in the right areas? If those people around you are working 12-hour days, but they're not prioritizing their physical health, their relationships with friends, family, the things that we know for a fact cannot fall off of our to-do list because it impacts our ability to grow and to reach our full potential. If those people are doing those things, you have to prioritize other things. So it actually might mean that you work less, right? But you're investing your time in the right areas. And that kind of hit me the other day even. I was like, oh, there's actually a real opportunity here in the act of looking different and working different. You might actually work less, but you're going to work in the right direction, right? Because busy now is very sexy, and everybody, says if you're not working 100 hours a week, you're never going to accomplish your goals. That may or may not be true for whatever individual we're talking about, but I think a lot of that work is going in the wrong direction. So be focused in your work. Prioritize, spend your time in the right areas. That's going to yield the results that you want. So what I want you to do is I want you to identify one thing that you're doing just because, and in quotes, it's what everyone does. So what would happen if you stop that? What's another decision you can make? What would you do that's the antithesis of that decision? Again, it's what everyone else is doing. Well, maybe that's not the results you want. If they're not achieving extraordinary things and that's what you want to be, then you're going to have to make some different decisions. All right, so we talked about work. Let's talk about how to apply this to physical goals. So again, these three areas are what I want to leave you with. And this, it's ultimately it sounds very similar, but I want to give you very specific examples of what it sounds like in the physical realm. Ultimately, if you train like everyone else, you're going to get results like everyone else. So if you're half-assed, if you're inconsistent, if you don't push yourself, if you're not focused, if you push yourself too hard and you burn out, overtrain, and get hurt, and you're constantly ping-ponging from injury to overtraining to having to take 6 weeks off to recover, you're going to get these, you're going to get the same results, right? These are not long-term, consistent, extraordinary results. These are reactive individuals, right? Reactivity certainly goes just as much as it plays into our business and our career, it plays into our physical pursuits as well. So what's extraordinary mean when we're talking about the physical side of things, our physical goals? One, it means that we do it when we don't feel like it. And I'm not going to beat this to death. I've talked about this at length, but ultimately, it doesn't matter if you don't feel like it. Motivation comes and goes. reaching our full potential from a physical perspective is about recognizing that the sum total of the effort is what matters, showing up consistently, and when motivation is there, great. Also, train when you don't feel like it. Now, I'm not saying train when you're hurt. I'm not saying train when you're burnout, when you're over fatigued. There is a fine line here. And I do want to point that out because I think there is a version of this that's gotten overdone. And it's certainly become very sexy to train for the wrong reasons and to train when you actually need to rest. So let me state for the record that rest is the only time that fitness is built. Hear me when I say this. Fitness is not built during training. That is a stress, that is a dose of stress. And then the stress response and the compensation for that stress happens when we rest. So you have to recover. So do not misunderstand me when I say that when we train when we don't feel like it, it means that we recognize the bigger picture and we're staying focused on our vision and our goals, and we're training appropriately with clear priorities in mind. One of those priorities is rest and recovery. Extraordinary also means that we're pushing beyond our perceived limits, right? We know that comfort doesn't yield really much of anything, right? Growth has never really happened in comfort. Growth happens on the other side of friction. Well, friction in training is stress. It's discomfort. It's pushing ourselves. Now, it doesn't mean that we push every time. Doesn't mean every workout is hard, but we push beyond our perceived limits. We know that we can do more, so we continue to strive for that. And then, let me reiterate, I think what extraordinary means when it comes to our physical goals is that we prioritize recovery. We prioritize nutrition, and we prioritize long-term consistency over quick fixes and hacks. So it's no 90 days to this. It's no 6 weeks to your abs. It's no, 8-week blah, blah. No, we are in it for life, right? We know that a consistent movement practice and ensuring that we maintain and keep up our physical bodies is the only way that we can show up in the other areas of our lives, right? It's the gas in our tank. It's the thing that refills us. And so we know that we also have to prioritize the long-term aspect of this, which means recovery is key. We don't train ourselves into the ground because we want to be in it forever, right? I'm not just trying to do this event that's coming up in a few months. I'm trying to parlay that experience into next year and 5 years from now and 10 years. I'm building tools. I'm building a mindset. I'm building practices that are going to serve me in all areas of my life. And so I'm trying to stay in it for the long game. So recovery, nutrition, long-term consistency, that's what it means to be extraordinary when it comes to our physical pursuits. What does that look like in practice? So if your friends skip workouts and complain about being out of shape, doing what they do won't get you to where you want to go, right? Your community matters. It matters in all areas of your life, but it certainly matters when it comes to your physical pursuits. You need people that understand what it looks like to show up every day, right? So if your friends aren't practicing and they're not doing this in alignment with your goals, you need to find a new community that supports your physical goals. Olympic athletes don't train based on if they quote unquote feel like it. They commit regardless of motivation. Now, I'm using that as an example because we know for a fact, again, that feeling like it isn't an appropriate stimulus. If I worked out when I felt like it, I'd work out a couple times a year. But we also know that we always feel better on the other side of it. And it's a critical piece to how we show up in the rest of our lives. So I want you to think about setting non-negotiables for training standards. Define what extraordinary effort means for you and hold yourself to it. I want you to write this down. What are your non-negotiables? What is extraordinary effort for you? What does it look like to show up when you don't feel like it? When does that happen? How do you define that? What's that feeling? Define it, and then hold yourself to it. And maybe even share it with other people and get them to hold you to it as well. So We got work, we got physical pursuits. Most people don't prioritize what truly matters. So again, most people are reactionary. Something comes our way, we put out a fire. That's the priority of the minute, the hour, the day, maybe even the month. We find a way to navigate that thing, whether we solved it or not. We stress about it. That fire gets put out. We do it again. Something else comes our way. We wait, we react, we navigate, we reset, and start all over again. And again, I'm not saying that anyone who responds that way or lives that way is quote unquote bad or not doing enough. What I want to highlight is that there's an opportunity for a mindset shift that I think everybody has access to if we recognize that there's some different ways and some different mechanisms for us to actually start to think about ourselves as having the true ability to be extraordinary in our lives in whatever capacity we can, so that we don't just sit back and let things happen to us. So the common trap here is that being surrounded by people who say they want something but don't act accordingly. This for me is really my biggest frustration. And I'm going to define that. I'm not frustrated at the person. I'm frustrated because I know that so many people are capable of so much more. And they say that they want more, and then they're unwilling to take action in the direction of the things that they say that they want. And I say that you cannot be mad about the results that you're getting for the action that you're not taking. Right? I'm going to say that again. We do not get to be mad, upset, frustrated, let down, discouraged about the results that we're getting for the actions that we are not or unwilling to take. And I think it's so easy to be surrounded by people who say that they want something, but they're not acting accordingly. And then that pulls us into that trap. Yep, I sure would like to be in better shape. I need to start. I need to start running. I need to go to the gym. Yeah, I gotta lose the weight. Do it. Do it today. Right? Yeah, I sure would like to start this business. I sure would like to grow my business. I sure would like to hire some people. I'd like to make more money. I'd like to do it. Take action. Start today. There's no better time. It doesn't get easier tomorrow. There's no more information you need. There's nothing on the other side of these excuses that we build for ourselves that's going to make you any more prepared. So just start. Right? And if you're around people who you recognize are saying things but not taking action accordingly, then I want you to really think about what it looks like to change your environment. Now, I'm not saying you have to get rid of those friends, but I'm saying you do need some people that highlight what it looks like to take action in a clear direction that yields results in alignment with what they say they want. Those are different people. Those people move through the world differently because they're not held back by excuses. Right? What do I need to do to make it happen? It's the only question we ask ourselves. We figure out a solution. What needs to happen? What do I need? What skills do I need? Why haven't I done this? Well, because I don't know how to. Great, let's figure it out. Set some goals and let's start taking action. So what does this mean for you? So if your goals are different, your actions have to be different. I just want to reiterate that. I can't overstate how much it matters that if you have different goals, and the people you're around, the environments you're in, your actions have to be different. I also want to highlight that it's okay to prioritize your health, your rest, focused work, meaningful goals, even if it makes you the odd one out. I think this is really the caveat, because I think that we hear language like this and we're like, oh, okay, then I'm going to go work myself to death, right? If other people are sitting on the couch, I can't sit on the couch. If other people are doing, taking it easy, I can't take. There's no time for that. That's not what I'm saying. And I think it actually makes you extraordinary when you prioritize the right things, which are your health, right? It makes you extraordinary that you show up for your health and for your workouts and for exercise the same way that you show up for your work or any other area of your life. And that's just as consistent. It makes you extraordinary when you get enough sleep at night, when you prioritize rest, when everybody else is running themselves ragged, getting 4, 5, 6 hours of sleep. It makes you extraordinary when you build the systems in your life necessary to get a good night's rest, so you can be the person that you need to be, and you can repair your body and your mind and get at it again the next day and hit it hard and have the energy and the mental clarity. And we know for a fact that sleep is a superpower, right? So rest makes you extraordinary. Focused work, when everybody else is reactive, running around putting out fires, trying to stay busy because they think busy is the marker of success. Focused work, clear goals, precision, strategy, execution. Right? It's not a roll of the dice. You know exactly what you're doing. Now, you might not have the answers. I'm not saying that you know exactly what it takes to get there. By all means. It's a lot of times I don't have a fucking clue. But I know what it takes to get there. I can map it out. I know what skills I need, and I know that it requires focused work. It's not just me checking off task lists. And I'm going to build towards some meaningful goals that are actually going to help me show up in the world in a way that's in alignment with the impact that I want to make, the legacy that I want to build, and a person who is, by my own standards, trying to be extraordinary. Now, again, I think that could be different for everybody. My extraordinary is different than yours and somebody else's. That's fine. I just want you to step in the direction and move in the direction of your full potential and start to see that you are different than other people. So even if it makes you the odd one out, again, it's okay to prioritize your health, your rest, focus work, meaningful goals. I want you to lean in. It's okay to do things differently. People, think about somebody that you know that you think is wildly successful. Could be, you don't have to know them personally. Could be Steve Jobs. Could be, an Olympian, whomever. Did they make the same choices as everyone else? No, they made unconventional choices. They made extraordinary choices that allowed them to be extraordinary. Now, again, I'm not saying that the goal is to be Steve Jobs, but I'm saying is that we start to take action, we start to shift our mindset, and that starts to stack brick by brick so that we start to recognize an extraordinary life. That's really what I care about. I think there's so much opportunity. There's so much life to be lived and so much that happens when we get out of our own way and stop making excuses and stop being reactive and actually start to make some extraordinary decisions. And then we get to really recognize what's possible. It doesn't just have to be rinse, repeat, go to work, put up with the bullshit, do the thing, come home, right? Like there's so much out there. And I know that a lot of these things for all of us are out of our control, but what we can control is our mind, right? We can control our actions. We can control what we prioritize. And that starts to put in place very real equation that creates an extraordinary existence. So I want you to look at your current habits and I want you to ask yourself, are these aligned with the extraordinary life that I want? I want you to do like a habit audit. Right? The things that you're doing are yielding the results that you're getting. There's no way to dodge that bullet. No one else is responsible for that. What you're doing every day, the habits, the actions you're taking are ultimately what yields the results that you're getting. So let's take stock. right? Are the habits that you have, are they aligned with the extraordinary life that you want? Yes or no? And then what can change? Right? What can you do? Just one thing. Start to make a tweak. Right? Doesn't have to be a wholesale change. I think that's where we get derailed too. Not everything's going to change. Some things are out of our control. That's totally fine. I get that. We can change some things. We can shift our mindset first. We can take stock of the actions and the habits that we have that are yielding the results that we get. And we can ask ourselves, are they aligned with the extraordinary life that I want? Yes or no? And if no, then what needs to change? So, recap. Couple things. To be extraordinary, you must be extraordinary in your actions, your mindset, and your decisions. Right, so I'm going to say it again. So to be extraordinary, you have to be extraordinary in your actions, your mindset, and your decisions. I want you to audit those things. Are your actions, is your mindset, and are your decisions in alignment with what your definition of being extraordinary is? And if not, I want you to think about where you can make some changes. This applies to, for the purposes of this conversation, your business, your fitness, your physical health, and your life. There's so much opportunity, again. So much. We're just coming up with excuses. I need this. I need that. It's not the right time. It's not I'm putting out fire. My friend does this. He looks fine. He looks happy. Do you? What's your extraordinary life look like? Build goals towards that. Don't worry about other people. If everyone around you is prioritizing the wrong things, I need you to do something different. Right? It's time to stop comparing yourself to people that aren't getting the results that are in alignment with the life that you want to lead. And I think for me, that's a massive shift and has been incredibly impactful. Now, again, doesn't mean that I can't be friends with these people. It doesn't mean that I don't have amazing relationships with these people. It doesn't mean that those people aren't important in my life. What it means is they're not my standard. I'm not comparing my success or how I'm moving through my life and the decisions I'm making to their life because their results aren't in alignment with what extraordinary looks like for me. So my bar is different. So final challenge, I want you to identify one habit, one mindset, or one action where you've been following the crowd, and I want you to change it. I want you to change it this week. I want you to do something different so that you can get something different. And then I'd love for you to let us know. EnduranceMinded.com. Share your biggest takeaway from this episode. You can tag me on social media at taylor.j.thomas. We're also at thomasendurancecoaching.com. We're also at Thomas Endurance Coaching on Instagram. You can tag us anywhere. We're all over the place. I'm easy to find. I want you to share your biggest takeaway from this episode. Right? So once you identify that one habit, that one mindset, that one action where you've been following the crowd, you dedicate yourself to changing it. This week, I want you to share your biggest takeaway with us. And again, you can do that at EnduranceMinded.com. Tag me on social media at taylor.j.thomas on Instagram. And I want to hear what it is. And if this episode resonated with you, I want you to leave a review and I want you to send it to someone who needs to hear this genuinely. Not because, and I mean this, not because ratings, subscriptions, shares are the lifeblood of podcasts. Of course, that's important. I do want you to do that because I believe in this podcast and I want it to make an impact in the larger community, but because I truly want people to take one action in the direction of an extraordinary life. There's so much opportunity out there, and there's so many people that are just holding themselves back, right? They're taking actions in the direction of the results that they don't want. So they need to understand what it looks like to shift their mindset to be extraordinary so that they can be extraordinary. So I want you to share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Send it to a friend, a colleague, coworker, family member, whomever, and tell them to do the same thing. Share your biggest takeaway. And as always, I hope genuinely that you found this meaningful. I hope that you can apply these things immediately right now this week into your life so that you can start to take action in the direction of extraordinary life. And until then, I'll see you next time on Endurance Minded.